Welcome to MacStories Unwind, a weekly review of everything MacStories and more. Today's show is brought to you by Quill. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is our editor-in-chief, Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
You couldn't get rid of the Italian fella. As you said last week, I'm back, and I'm never leaving again.
You're not supposed to listen. Come on.
I am supposed to listen. I am behind, so hi, first of all. It's nice to be back here. I am so behind on my podcast backlog.
I bet you are.
I really am. I don't know what I'm going to do. For sure, I got to use something with like smart speed if I want to catch up on everything. But yeah, it's good to be back, and we are preparing for an upcoming Apple event, which we're going to talk about shortly. All sorts of things are happening with the club, with MacStories, with App Stories. Busy time of year. Really the best time of year, though.
It's Friday. We've got Friday night lights going on here in my part of the world. We got the high school football, and you know why I mentioned that, Federico?
Isn't Friday Night Lights a TV show?
It is a TV show, but it's meant to.
Oh, it's an expression.
It's a reference to high school football because like college teams play on Saturday and the pros play on Sunday. And Friday is when high school football happens in the U.S. for the most part. And I mention it because my wife, Jennifer, is a security guard at the football game, which I think is very funny. I think it's very funny.
She doesn't strike me as a security person.
No. What they do, they pay her so she stands by a gap in the fence and keeps little kids from going out onto the field during the game. People who aren't authorized to be on the field, she has to tell them they can't go onto the field. And so she loves it because there's always people around. She basically gets to socialize for 3 hours.
She's great at that.
Yeah, exactly. With neighbors and anybody she meets, she loves to chat with. So she's very social. She gets to chat. She tells these little kids not to go onto the field, and they pay her money. So it's kind of a win all the way around, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's just incredible. I had no idea that you were going there when you mentioned football, so thank you.
I figured that was a story that I didn't want to save for Unplugged. It's a relatively new thing. Tonight's her third game of the year, and I think she has a couple more to go. But all right, Federico, let's dive into the stories from this week. I don't know, where should we start? Maybe we should start with FaceTime, because you and I spent some time on FaceTime this week testing it out, because I'd used it a little bit over the summer, but we had to really kind of dig into the details because there are a lot of updates coming with FaceTime. Even though SharePlay isn't coming out until later this fall, there's still some really nice enhancements. So, I mean, I'm curious, what did you think of it? Because you hadn't really focused a lot on that when I called you earlier this week.
I like the new microphone modes. I think it's the ability to have voice isolation and a wide spectrum to pick up background noises. I think that's a really nice way to take advantage of what Apple can do with audio effects on iOS and iPadOS and the Mac these days. I'm a fan of portrait mode. I think it's very nicely done. It's not perfect, but it does a good enough job in blurring out the background so that if you're on a FaceTime call with some other colleagues, for example, they don't necessarily see your bed sheets or your bookshelf in the background, that sort of stuff. I think it's nicely done. The new UI is quite nice of the FaceTime app itself. I like the floating menu that they have with the buttons now. I like the control center integration. I haven't been able to try the grid view yet for multiple participants. So overall, I think the FaceTime, the redesign works for me. I think it's nicely done. There's less confusion in terms of starting a FaceTime video or FaceTime audio call. And I think you can tell from your screenshots there is a much more polished design than before. And I was also quite impressed with the web version of FaceTime. Where you can now create links to invite over to a call people that don't have an Apple device, right? So they can just join in from any web browser. I mean, it also works from the iPad version of Safari, but I don't see why you would do that if you have the native FaceTime app. But it works well. And the web app has basically the same design of FaceTime on the iPad, but it's on the web. And I think it works pretty well.
Yeah, it seemed to work really well. I think the picture quality was a little different because when you switched to that, you seemed a little darker. But yeah, it was it worked really well. And the fact that you can now share links, which is something that's obviously typical that you can do in Skype or Zoom or whatever, but that wasn't something you could do before with FaceTime, and you can set those up right inside the FaceTime app itself, or you can do it as part of Calendar, because you can go in, set up an event, and if you choose FaceTime as the location, it generates the link, and then when you invite people, they'll be sent the link. So it's really nicely done. When you do a call with someone who's not using an Apple device, all they really have to do to get started is to put in their name, and then they have to wait until you let them into the call, which is kind of a security control type thing. But it worked really well. I was happy with it, and I'm happy with the audio controls too.
Yeah.
There's spatial audio available now too. I can't say that I really felt like that was any different when you and I were talking. Maybe if you have a big group of 6 or 7 people or something, it might make a difference in a grid view. But for the most part, that didn't make nearly the difference of voice isolation or wide spectrum. So anyway, check that out, because there's some pretty cool features coming. Another story that I did this week was on HomeKit and tvOS. And the reason I put those two together is because there is a lot of what's coming in HomeKit this year is integrated into the Apple TV in terms of controlling video cameras and other devices that you've got that are HomeKit compatible. We're going to talk all about this on App Stories on Monday, so I'll save most of it for that. But I've been really impressed with how HomeKit has come along with the home video cameras, because when it launched, it was a little rough around the edges, but now it's been really solid, and the integration with the Apple TV is really nice. Especially if you're watching TV in some other part of your house that's not near your front door or something, and maybe someone comes to your door, you can see them and control all that right from your TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought that was a really nice integration for tvOS, and we're going to talk about that some more on the next episode of App Stories out on Monday. So stay tuned for a longer, bigger conversation about all kinds of things tvOS related, and also about John's mudroom, which is a real topic that we are going to cover on App Stories next week.
We just can't wait for those unplugged episodes anymore. We have to have we haven't had these conversations in a while, so we got to get them out of our system now and then.
Yeah, there's an Apple event coming. In case you've been living under a rock, there's an Apple event scheduled for next Tuesday, September 14. We're obviously going to cover the event at MacStories, so stay tuned for overviews, for summaries, recaps, roundups, all the things that we usually do. We are expecting, of course, the iPhone 13 announcements, right? All the new so-called, I guess we're going to call it iPhone 13, all the different versions of the device. Maybe, I would guess, even the new Apple Watch, the Series 7 watch, which according to the latest rumors is going to feature a redesign, like a major redesign with flat edges and a slightly bigger display that is almost going to be bezel-less. So almost edge-to-edge, flat sides, brand new design coming to the watch. I'm really keen to see what Apple has done here. And then there's all kinds of other announcements that potentially may happen on Tuesday, from AirPods 3 to maybe the release date of, iOS 15 and iPadOS, I think we're going to get release dates. macOS Monterey is more of a question mark. And also new Macs. I'm a little skeptical that we're going to see anything Mac-related next week.
I don't think we will.
But as I mentioned, in addition to the usual articles that we're going to do and the recap that we're going to do on App Stories the week after the event, we're also going to do something extra special this time. We are going to get together on the Club MacStories Plus Discord just a few hours after the Apple event has wrapped up. And we're going to do a special live town hall. So think of this as a special sort of live podcast / Q&A where Discord members will be able to join in, listening live as John, Alex, and I talk about the Apple event. They will be able to ask questions, and we'll just share our first impressions of whatever Apple will have announced by then. This is going to be for Club MacStories Plus and Club Premier members only. So go to plus.club to either join Club MacStories Plus or Club Premier, or upgrade your existing Club MacStories account and connect your Discord account, join the Club MacStories Discord, and all you need to do is click join on the voice chat, on the Town Hall voice channel, and that's all you need to do. You can listen, and then of course you can just hang around in the Discord. It's a cool place to be. So we're going to do that on Tuesday. We're going to confirm the time in the Discord server itself. This is going to be super fun because we're going to share like first impressions, like
Yeah, it's going to be great.
right after the event. We're also super busy, but we wanted to make the time for this kind of special town hall because this is the kind of thing that we can do now with our own community. We have full control over the Discord and we can do this kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. It's going to be a lot of fun. Those days are always absolutely super busy and wild, but I can't wait to kind of get in there and do the first impressions because the Discord has really become my favorite place to hang out online. And I think doing a town hall is going to be really fun next week. All right, Federico, moving on. We also got all new map features in Italy this week, which basically Italy in one day got 2 years worth of updates that were rolled out over time, over 2 years in the United States. These are things that I've been covering. I linked to this in the story this morning that has my past articles, and all those features are suddenly going to be available, whether it's transit, look around, 3D buildings, lane assistance, natural language, Siri commands, all sorts of things came to Italy today.
Yeah, I cannot wait to check out Look Around, which I still don't see in the app, by the way. So I guess we're waiting for
taking a little while,
a server-side rollout. But the new map is excellent. I really like the look. I'm going to switch full-time to Apple Maps. Finally, I can stop using Google Maps. So I'm really happy.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how extensive the look around is in Italy. I know it is definitely more widespread in this area than I expected initially. At least in the Chicago area, it extends far out into the suburbs. So very handy feature.
Nice.
All right. We should talk about Club MacStories because we had kind of a big issue this week. We had a story that I did about some of my favorite cross-platform features in the OS updates. And these are really not the splashy features, not necessarily. Some of them are. I guess Quick Note maybe is, but a lot of them are just things that have improved the way that I've used my iPhone, iPad, and Mac over the long haul over 3 months, and what I've found that really makes a difference in my day-to-day. So check that out. I also did a story about what those event days are like at MacStories, what we do to prepare for it, and what we do is we wait around for the thing to get started, which I don't know about you, Federico, but that's the hardest part, is sitting there with feeling very distracted and not really feeling like I can get anything else done, but not having anything else to do.
Yes, that was definitely like that story resonated with me because we've been through this thing over and over, and I think we got it down. I don't want to say pretty much down to a science, but I think we are a pretty well-oiled machine at this point when it comes to covering events. So seeing you recap all of our strategy and habits, really, that was fun. We also we have a giveaway for ETA, which is an excellent app that we covered on MacStories before, to share your ETA with someone else and to see how long it's going to take you to get somewhere. And we had the desk setup of a Discord member. Really lovely desk setup. I'm quite jealous of it and all the multiple screens that they have going on. And a really fascinating iPad home screen of Scott Wilsey. I love this approach to a home screen, and it's sort of something that I'm trying to replicate myself in, having all apps in the dock and the home screen itself become a sort of like a widget launchpad. You know, now that we can have widgets on iPadOS on the home screen, it's something that I'm trying to consider and do myself, because I can get by with all apps in the dock and everything else searchable via Spotlight, right?
Right.
But then at that point, like, what's the role of the home screen? And I'm trying to follow an approach similar to Scott's here, where the page is just a collection of widgets. And I think I'm getting there. I have some ideas.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen you kind of poking around and trying to figure that out, and I read Scott's write-up, and I think it's a good approach. I think especially now that the app library is coming to the iPad, I think it's one of those things that I'm ready to kind of go there myself, because before it felt like there was this disconnect because you always were stuck with multiple pages on your iPad anyway. But now I feel like I can live kind of a small number of home screens lifestyle going forward. So I don't know. I'm gonna experiment with this a little bit myself. This week on App Stories, we talked all about reminders and notes and how Apple's really starting to move into the field of app customization in a way that was a little unexpected, frankly. And I think it fits really neatly with some of the themes that we've talked about in the past about third-party apps and the way that they've customized, apps like Carrot Weather and so forth. But there's a lot of deep customization that can happen now in reminders and notes, especially reminders where you've got all sorts of filters you can use to set up smart lists of tasks. All right, Federico, let me tell you about our sponsor for this week's episode, and that is Quill. Quill is a messaging app and service that puts you, your time, and your focus first so you and your team can work better together. With Quill, you're in control of what messages you see and how much you see. That helps you stay focused and on task without constantly being interrupted. At the same time, though, Quill makes it easier than ever to get involved in conversations and decisions that need your input. Quill accomplishes all of this by focusing conversations around threads instead of channels. You don't need to follow a channel to be part of the thread. You can join one simply by starting the thread yourself or being mentioned in one. Push notifications are off by default for both channels and threads. Instead, events show up in something called the activity feed. Get caught up whenever works best for you instead of being interrupted and distracted by going to your activity feed. And of course, if something is truly urgent, you can always send a priority mention and the recipient is sent a push notification immediately. To learn more about Quill and try it for free, visit quill.chat today. Messaging has never been more easy and natural. Our thanks to Quill for their support of Unwind and all of MacStories. Okay, Federico, it's time to talk about our Unwind picks. I'm going to take a break this week from Arcade because I haven't had a chance to really scour through there, unless you have something that you want to talk about. But I really want to get to our pick because we have a joint pick this week, and I'm going to let you lead off with it.
And our joint pick is, surprise, surprise, the latest album by Churches, Screen Violence. This is just an amazing album. It's Churches' fourth record, and I struggle to believe this, but somehow they have made another hit.
I'm a huge 4 in a row.
4 in a row. I'm a huge Churches fan, and their style of synth pop,
right.
I just love their mix of obviously beautiful female vocals, but also synthesizers and all kinds of other electronic instruments. But this one, the concept, the sort of like the I was reading an interview where they were trying to go after this idea of like a horror album, and some of the themes throughout the record. It's just such a good collection of songs, and the lyrics. I some of them they really resonated with me. Some of my favorites include "Final Girl," for example, which I think is an amazing song with the guitar solo at the end. Oh my God, that's so good. I'm also a huge fan of "Good Girls," which is one of the singles that came out a few weeks ago. And it's just there's not a single bad song on this record. And the richness of the sound, it makes it an excellent album to listen to via really good headphones. And something that I also appreciate, which is kind of a rarity these days, this is a tight record. It's, I believe, 10 songs, less than 40 minutes, I want to say. They don't make albums like this anymore, where you can just go in and listen through in one sitting. A bunch of artists these days are making like 25 songs on the same album, and it's going to take you like a couple of hours to get through.
Right.
And some of them aren't really that good. Most of it is just filler, right? To play against the streaming algorithm, really. That's why albums are getting longer. But this is an old school, tight record where each song has a reason to exist on the album, and they're just really good songs. So I'm in love with this record.
Yeah, this is a fantastic album. It actually, I just looked, it clocks in at exactly 43 minutes.
Nice.
So yeah, it is very old school in that way. And it's old school in the sense that there's Robert Smith appears on one of these tracks too.
I know.
On How Not to Drown. And I think it's perfect because this, he was the lead singer for The Cure.
Yeah.
And there's so much of this sound that has its origins in that kind of 80s synth pop scene with The Cure and New Order and a bunch of those kind of bands. And those are bands that those are some of my favorite all-time bands. So this album's just made for me. I like the songs that you mentioned a lot too. I also enjoy How Not to Drown. I think that's so terrific. It's a terrific track. And California's another one that I really like. So you're right. This is one where when I put it on and I'm listening as I work, it's over before I even know it, because it's so coherent. It just kind of flows so well from one song to the next that you hardly even realize that you've listened to 10 songs and then it's finished. So it's a good one. I would say put this one on repeat and listen to it several times in a row, right?
I agree.
Because it sounds fantastic, as you said, and it's great on headphones or however you want to listen to it. But this is one of my favorite albums of the year. So there'll be several singles on this one for my favorites of the year. Okay, Federico, I think that's it for another week at MacStories. I want to thank our sponsor again, and that is Quill. You can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. Federico is at Fatici on Twitter and Instagram. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHEES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.